Here.
Mr. Nutter? Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi?
Here.
Mrs. Cartier?
Here.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright?
Mr. Sullivan's back. And Mrs. Bassett is here.
Present, and Mike is present. Okay. Yep. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975 C 231 Sunshine Law, copies of the public meeting notice were sent to the Burlington County Times and Trenton Times and posted on the district website.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda? Motion by Barachi. Second by Popso. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. Popso?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. John Paul.
Good evening. My name is John Paul Dunphy. FHS students have been involved in many worthwhile projects this month. Members of the Student Council, Interact Club, and the National Honor Society have been assisting with the Florence Township Softball Association concession stand. Students have spent many hours volunteering their time. The National Honor Society held its annual induction ceremony on May 4, 2022. The program featured a candle lighting ceremony highlighting the 4 pillars of the National Honor Society: scholarship, character, leadership, and service. 26 new members were inducted. Student Council would like to thank everyone who donated to the prom dress drive to benefit Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. We were able to collect several dresses, pairs of shoes, and some pieces of jewelry. The Student Council will be sponsoring a Kiss a Senior Goodbye fundraiser. Students will have the opportunity to write a message to the class of 2021 on a graduation cap cutout. Messages will be delivered to seniors with a bag of Hershey Kisses. The annual Junior-Senior Prom, hosted by the class of 2023, was held on Thursday, May 19th at Marion Caters in Cinnaminson. Sincere Johnson was crowned king, and McKenna Bernardo was crowned queen. The annual Junior-Senior Banquet will be held on Friday, June 3rd. The class of 2025 is sponsoring a school supply and hygiene drive. They will collect new school supplies and hygiene items through June 8th. Interact and Student Council elections are also quickly approaching. Anyone wishing to run for Student Council office should see Ms. Rodan in room E105 by June 10th to receive an election packet. Any student wishing to run for office must complete a reference form and fill out the required paperwork. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, and we are going to begin with recognition of our Staff of the Year. So we're going to do things a little bit differently. This is a recognition of the Governor's Educator of the Year. Normally throughout Burlington County we have a huge event, a luncheon, and an opportunity for all the schools that participate in Burlington County to get together and recognize the hard work of the educators, the Teachers of the Year, the Educator of the Year. Unfortunately, the past 2 years the event has been canceled, so we are just in receipt of our plaques. We're still waiting for the Governor's plaque. But before the school year ended, we wanted to make sure that we took an opportunity to publicly recognize the hard work and of our staff and individuals. So we are going to begin with Roebling Schools, Governor Educator of the Year, Ms. Voorhees, if you could join me, as well as Ms. There we go.
Good evening, everyone.
So I am really excited to celebrate Jen today. Since coming to Roebling, she's been fabulous. But I put together a little bit about her. So she started in education 16 years ago, and right away when she joined Roebling, how many years ago? 5? 5 years ago, right away they recognized her excellence in teaching. They nominated her for Teacher of the Year in both 2019 and 2020. And so she got it this year, so we're really excited about that. She is involved in the school and the district committees. She's on tons of committees. She's on the DEAC committee. She's on the report card committee. She's on the pandemic response, the mental health. Pretty much if you ask her to join, she will jump right in and help out. In addition, she's worked with our TCNJ practicum students to help them further their education. She comes to our STEAM Saturdays and helps run them. She even participated in my book club, which I appreciate, which was designed to help us move forward with Esther. So she is always striving to find ways to connect with her students. If you walk into her classroom, there is constantly, the kids, she has actually got them rotating around the room. They know exactly where to go, and she's always working in small groups to try to meet them where they are and move them forward. She's positive in the hallways, she's always happy, and it's very clear that she has a true passion for teaching. Outside of Roebling, she has a very supportive family. Her 2 children are here with her today, and they attend Riverfront. Thanks for coming, Sydney and Samantha. She is involved in a ton of outside organizations, Autism Speaks, Eagle Autism Challenge. She's a counselor at Liberty Lake. She's a cheerleading coach in Florence. So it's not just in the school district, it's in the community as well. And I just want to end, when she turned in her Teacher of the Year application, she wrote out, why she thought she should be Teacher of the Year. We asked all of the nominees to do that. And there was something that she said in there that just really stood out to me, so I want to read it to you. Every day, I feel fortunate to be in the school that I am in, surrounded by the colleagues that I have. They have become part of my why. My favorite quote comes from Haim Ginott and states, "Children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them makes an impression. I can only hope that I have made an impression on the students I have had along the ways and the others, and that others have had on me. My family, who always supports me, are my biggest cheerleaders, my colleagues for collaborating with me and showing me what true teamwork is, and most of all, my students, who make each day fun and challenge me to continue on this path of growth and limitless possibilities." So congratulations, Mrs. Voorhees.
So on behalf of the Board of Education, Burlington County, and the Governor's Office, we would again like to congratulate you and thank you for all of your hard work.
Do you want to say something about Kim, even though she's not here? Okay, all right. So Kim Mulvana was our support staff member of the year, and she could not be here today, but I did want to say just a little bit about her. In our school, she works with, she gets to know each student individually and their needs. Not only does she work hard to create a positive learning environment in the class, she also does a fantastic job building relationships with the students she sees on a daily basis. They're not even in her class. If you see her walking down the hallway, she'll call out kids' names and ask them about their weekends. She is very involved. Oftentimes when I walk into the class, it just makes me smile because she works with in our autism program, and she's always constantly pushing them to learn a little bit more. And you'll see when they get something, she stops and makes this big celebration where at the end, both of them are giggling and laughing like crazy. So they don't even realize they're learning. They're just doing it, for the celebration, for the smiles. When you walk into her room, there's a very warm feeling. So congratulations, even though she's not here, to Kim Mulvana. The award is well deserved.
For Riverfront, Mrs. Mungo.
Good evening.
I have the pleasure of welcoming and introducing Mr. Jim Ivins. Come on up here. So as he makes his way up, I'll read a little something about Mr. Ivins, but he's been in our district for over, I think, are you completing year 20 or you just? He's a teacher who truly enjoys everything he does in our school. He goes above and beyond for our school community at all times. He's a great example for both his colleagues and his students. His compassion, intellect, and patience has made him a highly effective member of our 7th and 8th grade inclusion team. But he has taught many grade levels since he's been here in his 21 years. Mr. Ivins loves to coach and assist with after-school programs, not just at Riverfront, but at the high school as well, and more recently of our girls basketball team, which just started back a couple years ago, so he is one of our basketball coaches for that. And he loves what he does, and it shows daily through his interactions with the students and colleagues. And I can't thank you enough, Mr. Ivins. It's been great working with you. You're awesome at everything you do. So congratulations, Mr. Ivins, on behalf of our entire Riverfront community. There we go. Okay, and who other than Miss Jennifer Leitinger, our school nurse, for our support staff Education of the Year award. And I say none other because we're just coming. Congratulations, Jenny. Ms. Leitinger is an amazing school nurse. She is kind and caring towards her students and staff. She meets the medical and emotional needs of everyone who enters her office. In any situation, she is willing to take the time to listen and be sure everyone understands the situation. She truly is kind and respectful, even in very difficult and emergent situations. Riverfront School is lucky to have you as our school nurse, and you are most deserving of this recognition. I know that Jenny, or I should say Mrs. Leitinger, I'm sorry, she was one of my first, probably just over 8 years ago, my very first interviews as an assistant principal. It was my first time being an administrator, and she was our first interview, so she was our first hire for me. So that's super exciting. She's still here. We've been in it a long haul. But making it through the pandemic with nobody else, I mean, we talked, I think, weekends, nights, it wouldn't matter. She was just always on call and supporting our staff and especially administration. So thank you, Jenny. Congratulations.
As you can see here, our Educator of the Year is Alyssa Zucchero, and unfortunately I don't think that she is with us at the moment. They had a round 2 playoff game. So there's a little something that's written here for Ms. Zucchero, and here it is. This is Alyssa Zucchero, as our Teacher of the Year at Florence Township Memorial High School. She works as a physical education teacher, and she also coaches multiple sports, and her involvement in our students' lives extends well beyond the end of the regular school day. Inside the classroom, Mrs. Zucchero executes meaningful and multifaceted lessons, and our students love her classes. Mrs. Zucchero is a dynamic individual, and she has developed amazing relationships with her students. They see her not just as a teacher, but as a mentor, a coach, and a role model. Mrs. Zucchero is also held in high regard by our students' parents, our staff, and our community. We are extremely fortunate to have Mrs. Zucchero working with us at FDMHS. This person is with us tonight, Mrs. Sebastian. Come on up. I've known Mrs. Sebastian since department. There is something written here. I have to stay on script because I have a tendency to talk too much. So here it goes. Mrs. Nancy Sebastian is our Educational Services Professional of the Year at FTMHS. She is a school counselor and she is dedicated to our students and their success. Mrs. Sebastian is always available for our students. She works with them before, during, and after school. Mrs. Sebastian helps our students navigate the complexities of high school life, plan for the future, and get the most out of their high school experience. Mrs. Sebastian is a great listener. She has excellent judgment, and she provides her students and their parents with wonderful guidance. What's more, Mrs. Sebastian is well respected and admired by her colleagues and our community. Mrs. Sebastian has a number of responsibilities at our high school, and she does them all extraordinarily well.
All right, so now we are going to switch to our Students of the Month and Manner Banner recognition. So if we can switch over, Mr. Gupta. And then Ms. Agresta, if you want to come back up for our Manner Banner group.
So this month's Manor Banner winner was Mrs. Nash's and Mrs. Lee's class. They are a great group of kids. I've gotten to know each one of them pretty well. I spent a lot of time talking to them. It was actually really fun to help. They helped me put the video together. And usually I'll pick just a couple kids from the class, but all of them were like, no, I want to help. So this video is a little longer than our normal one because I couldn't turn any of them down. They were so excited. So you can go ahead and start.
How like we go outside and blow bubbles for autism and do blow the bubbles for autism and do the concert and the dance. And then my favorite thing is my favorite fun stuff we can do with the staff and the teachers. And we get to play outside and do a fun scavenger hunt all around the school, or play on our Chromebooks, or try playing a game with the teachers and staff. I'm looking. Yeah, for example.
I like the kind teachers and the food.
What I like about Wolflake School is the activities that we do, and I like the principal and the nurse.
What do you love about Mrs. Nash and Mrs. Meenan's class?
I like them because they're kind and they help us work. I like how they call their classroom Nashville. I like it when Miss Mina and Miss Nash are kind to all of them. I like it when I'm sad because Miss Mina and Miss Nash always try to make me laugh.
I like how Mrs. Nash and Mrs. Meeting teach us math every day and different strategies to help us learn math. We learn different things every day.
I like how they're nice and funny and they make learning more fun. And one time Miss Meehan said about we were learning how to measure and it was kilometers and they said and Miss Meehan said kilometers can't really mean it because that's her full name.
What did your class do to win the Manor Banner?
We won the Manor Banner is not pushing people for a spot in line. We won the Manor Banner by being respectful to our teachers. How we won the Manor Banner is because we were very quiet and we never really shouted. We won the Manor Banner because our class was kind.
And we also won the Manor Banner because we were respectful by not talking over other people and like allowing people to talk. And like when like someone annoys you and you have a bad thing in mind, just don't say it at all. Think of a good thing.
We are positive because we can take care of ourselves like we can at home, during school, and anywhere else. And
We are safe. We won the Manor Banner because we were safe. And being safe means not to do dangerous stuff when people don't. Like if you're doing something dangerous and somebody says you might fall and they say get down and you won't, and you think you will hurt yourself, you might hurt yourself. So that's why you should listen to people and be safe.
Congratulations to Mrs. Nash and Mrs. Meenan's class.
I saw some people recording, but I'll send it to you. I'll send it to all of you. Do you guys have a problem? Mrs. Nash, Mrs. Meenan, come help me.
Congratulations, Christian. Congratulations, William. Congratulations, Isaiah. Congratulations, Caroline. Congratulations, Estelle. Congratulations, Jonathan. Congratulations, Audrey. Congratulations, Tony. And congratulations to the team. Congratulations, Wasfia.
All right, so just one more round of applause for our. And after all the awards are given out, we'll go out to the hallway and take a couple pictures with her. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Talaferro for Riverfront Student of the Month.
Good evening. My name is Mr. Talaferro, and it is my honor to introduce our Student of the Month for April, Connor Clevenger. So we have a very brief video I'm going to show all of you, then I'm going to brag about this young man for a second. But without further ado, and I will brag already, it was one take. Came in my office, got it done. So let's watch that video, and then let me brag.
My name is Connor Clevenger, and I'm an 8th grade student at Riverfront Middle School. Some of my interests and hobbies are I like to play sports. I play 3 at the moment. I play football, baseball, and basketball, all for Florence. I'm an NJHS at the school, and I'm also the student council president for Riverfront in the 2021 to 2022 school year, and I also love to hang out with friends. When I was nominated, I felt very excited and very surprised because I did not know that there was going to be an April 1, and it was just very cool to know, and it was interesting to find that out, especially when it came with announcements. At the school, my favorite subject was math, and it always has been because it was one of the easiest things. It was the easiest thing that always came to my mind, and it was always really just easy for me to do. I think my favorite memory at the district was when I won class president. I was in Spanish at the time, and when I heard it, a bunch of my friends, I left Spanish after the day ended, and like a bunch of my friends were like huddling around me and cheering me and stuff, and it was just really exciting and fun. My plans for high school are to go to Florence Township Memorial High School and to remain in honors classes and hopefully continue to play all 3 of my schools. At the age of 40, I see myself being an Ohio State graduate, possibly still playing in the NFL, and hopefully leaving a positive imprint in the world. I would love to leave behind a legacy after I pass away, and people remember me for as long as possible. For the younger students, I would say to not overthink things and just make sure you get your work done, and stay really determined, but not too determined and overthink things, and still make time to enjoy yourself being a kid and hanging out with friends. This year is my 8th year, I think going outside for lunch and enjoying time with friends outside is fun. Also, I think the social is going to be really fun, as long as seeing the graduation and all of our field trips like the Lily Park and then the waterworks fields. I feel like that's going to be really fun.
Connor Clevenger. What happens when you play your assistant principal during the HHS lock-in in the game of horse?
You absolutely destroy him. You beat him HORSE to H, and he just loses, and then he like cries.
We played a little bit. I did defeat Connor in the game of horse. I'm not happy about it, but I had to So I remember when I first met this young man when he was in 5th grade. I think we're about the same height. We're pretty close right now, but most recently, he's our National Junior Honor Society, plays football, plays basketball, plays baseball, and we had a lock-in. So I figured I'd challenge a young man to a game of horse. Although it did not go very well for him, we had a great time. The one thing I can say, any student of the month, there's certain things that are for everybody. Obviously, he has great grades. He's a very athletic young man, but the thing I admire most about Connor is his sphere of influence. So many of our students who have that kind of popularity, especially in middle school, they're not always making those right choices and leading their peers in the right way. This is a young man who sets the example. He does the right things. And not only that, he pushes his peers and his fellow students to do the right things and make the right decisions. So this is a student who I'm holding on to dearly, and I'm a little sad because I do have to let him go to the high school, but I know he will continue to do that. He's left a great legacy. Even as a Penn State fan, I know he will go to Ohio State and continue doing great, but we love having him and want to see him continue to do great things. So give another round of applause to our student of the month, Connor Clevenger.
We have two students of the month to recognize in the high school. The first student of the month is for the month of March, and that is none other than Lola Carnival. So Lola, come on up. We're trying something new here, okay? The second student of the month is none other than Jess Kieran Mangit. So Jess Kieran. Okay, we have questions, we have a microphone, we're going to make this happen. So it's like a live interview, kind of, but they have their answers already, provided. So here we go. Lola, what do you like most about our high school?
I like how our students are very supportive of one another. For example, when it comes to sports, not only do our families come, but so do students and also faculty members. It doesn't matter if it's a huge game, like a playoff game, or just a small game. Everyone comes, and I think we all come together as one for that.
Very good. We're not going to time for each response. Too much clapping. Jess Kieran, go ahead.
What I like about Florence Township Memorial High School is it may be a small school, but it's a great environment to get involved with extracurriculums or even with education. Like there's cafe club, yearbook club, debate club, robotics club, computer science club, NHS, and many more. What I like the most is it builds confidence for us. And it built confidence for me over the 4 years, and I was able to help the others around me build their confidence along the way to overcome any obstacles in the way.
Good. Okay, question number 2. What is your favorite subject and why?
Mine would definitely have to be my gym class. It's very fun. It gets me active if I'm not doing a sport at the time. I love the teachers and students in that class. Yeah.
Mine will not be gym, but it will be science because I just find it very fascinating. Over the course, I've taken 3-4 different science classes. And I find it very different of like how physics and biology involved, like it provides you many opportunities. It's just not a one stop. New discoveries are found, such as COVID, the vaccinations was found. And it's just fascinating to know because like you don't know what the future holds. And science is a field that can help you learn what happened in the past and what will happen in the future.
Very good, very good. Okay, question 3. What are your hobbies and interests outside of school?
Outside of school, I'm doing different field hockey clinics or hang out with friends, and other than that, I'm normally working at Wawa.
My hobbies are I like dancing, reading, baking, volunteering at a senior living center, spending time with my triplet cousins, they're here, playing golf, listening to music, organizing, and what I love the most is sleeping and eating. And my interest is I love to learn new languages and organize special events to make someone's night or evening.
All right, last question. What are your plans for life after Florence Township Memorial High School?
After high school, I plan on attending RCBC through the STARS program and having a career working with children.
There are numerous opportunities to look upon, yet we have very little time to do so. When I was 7, if you ask me what I want to be, I'd be like, oh, I want to be a teacher because my aunt and my mother were my role models. Now, if you ask me again at 13, I'm like, oh, I want to be a pilot. In conclusion, I just don't know what I want to be. It's just where my path will lead me since my plans have set are to go with the flow. Currently, I plan to attend college and get a bachelor's degree in biology, followed by allowing my future self to figure out the rest.
These two young ladies are leaders in our school. They set a great example for not just our underclassmen, but for our upperclassmen as well. They're academically gifted. They are involved in so many activities, and you've heard about some of them just now, and we're so happy that they're here with us, and we'll be sorry to see them go. So, one more round of applause.
Okay, so again, I want to congratulate our Teachers of the Year and the Educators of the Year. Thank you again for your hard work and your dedication to our students in the school community. And congratulations to our Students of the Month in the Manor Banner. You're definitely an example that we want others to continue to follow, so thank you. Board President, I would ask, I believe the board is going into closed executive session if you want to take action rather than a recess, so that we can take pictures at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
So I need a motion and a second to adjourn to the executive confidential session for the purpose of discussing confidential matters. Motion, I'm sorry, was it you? Motion by Sullivan. Second by Cartier.
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Baraji? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes.
So executive session would be approximately 20 to 30 minutes. Action will be taken.
We're going.
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Superintendent's report?
Okay, just to follow up again, as John Paul for student recognition, we have a lot of events taking place. I would ask the school community to continue to please read the s'mores and updated information in regards to events. For the board, distributed this evening were the invitations for graduation. If you could please let us know as soon as possible if you will be participating in the graduation ceremony so that we can arrange for the new seating chart and stage area. And then also, in my notes for the board is Sodexo and Riverfront School Community by student request is doing a pizza war. Students submitted their recipes. We have selected 7 finalists, and I believe it's June 2nd is the tasting event, so I do need 1 or 2 volunteers from the board to be testers. It's June 2nd at 2:30. Here at the high school, the students will make the pizza with the Sodexo workers, and then samples will be available. It's a great event.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yes, okay, I have 1 volunteer. Anyone else? Anyone else interested? It's a great event.
I'll see if I can.
All right. If anyone else would be interested, please email me.
I'm going to fight Michael for the
Thank
pizza.
you. Okay. It is fun, so thank you.
Is that all?
That's all I have, yes.
So now we'll have committee reports of the board. Who would like to start? I'm sorry? Okay.
All right. The finance committee met via email.
Do you need a microphone?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear? Okay.
So the finance committee met via email, just 2 items on. Really?
Hello. The Finance Committee met to discuss 2 items via email. We had updated pricing on tile for the riverfront cafeteria flooring, and everybody recommended that we put that forward for approval. And the business administrator updated the committee about the purchase of a point-of-sale system for our cafeterias district-wide. The funds are through the cafe funds. The new system removes the manual counting of meals by cafeteria staff. It talks directly to Genesis and updates the accounts instantly across all of the terminals. So it really alleviates a lot of work, and the past equipment was getting outdated. So, and I believe you said that that's in local funds, right? Cafe funds. So, and so we via email recommended that we put it forward for approval.
Curriculum meeting, we've discussed the new series. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get together to look at it, but I think I sent out the teacher comments, I sent out all the new reading series. So we're moving.
Okay, the Personnel Committee met via video on 5/16. The items that we discussed were the personnel reports and the appointments that were going to be made, the approvals of the BA and superintendent's contracts which are on the agenda for this evening, the attendance of the district at various job fairs, and the we discussed pending vacancies, which are slowly, happily being filled. Before you tonight are P0 through P1 through P9, and we urge the adoption of all of them.
Facilities Committee met on Monday, May 2nd. Myself, Christine, Chris, Toby, Donna, Lewis, and Brian were in attendance. The committee was updated on projects that were completed over the spring break. Projects completed include removal of paint from the windows from the riverfront gym, installation of new mats at the riverfront gym, security cameras in all 3 schools have been updated, new ones. Tennis courts cracked have been repaired. Security glass installed at the riverfront. Strobe light installation at all 3 schools, and the door latch in the 6th grade wing has been repaired. The committee also discussed potential future capital projects to take place and timelines for the completion. Projects discussed include replacement of the fire alarm and future parking lot expansion at the Roebling School. At the riverfront, replacement of bleachers in the gym, upgrade of electrical and lighting in the auditorium. Updating the boys and girls locker rooms, updating the bathrooms. The vendor did come in on May 2nd to provide pricing for updating the floor, upgrading the floor. At the high school, future replacement for the tennis courts and track, the track. Striping and numbering of all the student parking area is set to take place in June. And I'm trying to identify a location for a potential soccer scoreboard. Committee was updated on the status of the ESIP and the PSC&G energy audits. ESIP walkthrough was completed on 4/28/22. PSC&G walkthrough is complete and the district is waiting on the lighting scope. We need to know what the ESIP is. Louis can explain that. Shoot me an email. The committee also reviewed proposal for floor replacement in the riverfront cafeteria and the purchase of new cafeteria tables for the riverfront school. The committee also reviewed a proposal for removing a tree by the auditorium. The tree's like 400 years old. It's falling down. No, it's going to fall. Also pruning of trees along Front Street in the project. They're typically over the summer. We reviewed a proposal for the installation of the new Salto card readers for the playground entrance at Roebling in the current year. And we also reviewed the cost analysis for in-house and outside nighttime custodian.
Mr. Nutter, if I can just add to that, we received last week, the township took action for the contract of sale of the land between the Roebling School, that vacant lot. So we are in receipt of the contract of sale for us to review and further meet and discuss.
That's huge.
So if we're willing to take, and we want to take that action, we would be looking in June to accept further negotiations with the contract, and then we have to go to contracts, and then there's several steps in between. But yes.
So for the policy committee, we have not met yet, just because we're waiting for a finalized contract from Strauss Esme. The contract rate is anticipated to be $14,000. We're going to finalize the steps to transition. That's the big question as far as timeline, when it can be done. If we can kind of squeeze through to possibly save money, that's, being fiscally minded, that is definitely something that we're keeping in mind. But the biggest question is, how long is it going to take to implement it? And so that kind of really affects the contract. So we look to finalize steps and to meet before the June meeting. So that's all I got. And that's for the policy, like putting policies and everything up online and making more of an index searchable, more user-friendly kind of search for anyone trying to access board notes or minutes or policies or anything like that.
And regulations.
Yes.
Non-chair of community relations, which this kind of all just happened, so we haven't met yet, but we will be hopefully before the next meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Okay, comments from the public. Members of the public are invited to submit comments pertaining only to the board agenda during this public comment portion of the meeting. General comments not necessarily pertaining to the agenda are invited to be submitted during the public comment portion at the end of this meeting. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, the board will not publicly discuss personnel matters. This portion of the meeting is not a question and answer session. The board will not respond to comments made by members of the public during this portion of the meeting. However, the board will give all comments appropriate consideration and will refer all individual complaints to the superintendent of schools or administration for resolution. Each statement made by a particular participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration and not to exceed a total of 30 minutes. May I have a motion and a second to open Community Forum 1? Motion by Sullivan. Second by Conti. Okay, it's got us voting. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Anyone? Okay, seeing no one, motion to close. Community. Motion by Sullivan. Second by Barachi. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. I need a motion and a second, please, to acknowledge the receipt of the following reports. attached here too and made a part of the minutes. A through D, please. Motion by Barachi. Second by Conti. Any questions?
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. I need a motion and a second, please, to approve the minutes of the following meetings of the Florence Township Board of Education, A through D. Motion by Conti. Second by Sullivan. Any questions? Yes.
I again want to say that I do not feel the minutes are detailed enough. If we have time to put in what the student council is saying and all the other stuff that shows student achievement, we should be including what people are saying in the public meeting in its entirety and not in little pieces.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
No.
Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Okay. Do I need to read this? Okay. May I have a motion and a second for travel and related expense reimbursement? Motion by Barachi. Second by Cartier. Any questions? Mhm. Any other questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. We have a motion and a second to affirm the harassment, intimidation, and bullying decisions. I'm sorry? Okay. Do you want, what, do you? Okay. May I have a motion and a second to affirm the harassment, intimidation, and bullying decisions? Motion by Conti. Second by Sullivan. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. May I have a motion and a second for the approval of the Safe Reopen Plan updates? Those updates are hyperlinked. Everything is hyperlinked to the motion by Sullivan. No, it's fine. Second by Cartier. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. We're on to business. May I have a motion and a second to approve the warrants and payrolls? Motion by Barachi, second by Sullivan. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner.
Yes. B2, may I have a motion and a second to accept the financial reports? Oh, that was a tie. Motion by Barachi. Sullivan, second by Sullivan. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. May I have a motion and a second for B3, contract approval, A through, hang on, N? Motion by Barachi. Second by Conti. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's a fob, so people can get in and out through the back, rather than a key.
But it's the side door. It's not the playground, it's the side door to the playground.
Right.
Oh, it's not the playground?
No, just the doors into the building. Yep. Oh.
No, right now.
They just climb the fence.
They use the key. Right, yeah, it'll be this one. This one that's on the parking lot side will then match the playground side. This one.
Yes.
Any other questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. May I have a motion and a second for B4, award of RFP for 22-23 school district vehicle repair and inspection? Motion by Barachi, second by Conti. Any questions? Seeing none? I'm sorry. Better? You want me to repeat that? Okay. Any questions? Seeing none.
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. B5, safety grant. I need a motion and a second to approve the submission of the safety grant application. Motion by Barachi, second by Popso. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. B6, disposal of equipment. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion by Barachi, second by Conti. Any questions? Yes.
The disposal of the piano, how are we doing that? Like, is it usable where we can donate it to if it's not usable? So it's garbage?
Shot.
This wasn't the Steinway.
Well, I'm not talking about value, I'm talking about ability to actually play it.
So the piano is not a Steinway and it's not playable. Any other question? What's that? There we go. Okay, go ahead.
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi? Mrs. Cartier? Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. I need a motion and a second for B7, health insurance benefit contract rates. Motion by Barachi. Second by Conti. All in favor? I'm sorry. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why is the prescription plan not within the health insurance plan?
We are part of a SHIF, Allen Associates, and that's how they have it broken out. It's usually a little bit of a cheaper cost than going through your insurance, going through the main insurance. Yes, there was no, there was, for the rates for the prescription, it went up slightly less than the rates for the healthcare.
Yes, but is the Benefart prescription plan more beneficial, or would it be more beneficial to have that all together in one plan?
Well, again, it's through our SHIF, they're our broker. I mean, I can certainly ask the broker to investigate that or look into it, but they usually, it's, okay.
Having been there.
I have a question. See, the dental plan, it only goes up to 3 parties. Is a family covered under that?
Yes, if you have 3 or more.
3 or more.
3 or more. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Ms. Bassett? Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Curriculum and instruction. C01, may I have a motion and a second to approve homebound instruction? Motion by Cartier, second by Sullivan. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. May I have a motion and a second to approve field trip for the 21-22 school year? Motion by Sullivan. Second by Cartier. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. C3 is also a field trip, but requested for the 22-23 school year. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion by Cartier, second by Sullivan. Any questions?
It's called the summer camp, except for the high school trip. Correct. Correct, yes.
Any other questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Personnel, may I have a motion and a second for Personnel 1, dated May 23rd, 22, appointments, leaves, resignations. Motion by Conti. Second by Barachi. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Personnel 2 is the appointment or reappointment of certified, non-certified staff for 22-23. May I have a motion and a second? Motion by Conti. Second by Barachi. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Personnel 3, dated April 26, 22, appointments extended school year program, EDP summer program 22-23. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion by Conti, second by Sullivan. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Personnel report number 4, approval of assignment of student teachers, practicum teachers for the 22-23 school year. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion by Conti, second by Sullivan. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Personnel report number 5, reappointment of Louis Valencia, Business Administrator, Secretary to the Board. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion by Conti, second by Sullivan. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Personnel number 6, approval of contract of Dr. Donna Ambrosia, Superintendent of Schools. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion by Conti, second by Sullivan. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
No.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Personnel number 7, dated May 23rd, emergent hires. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion by Conti,
Second.
second by Barachi. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Personnel number 8, grant salaries for the 22-23 school year. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion by Conti, second by Popso. Any questions? Seeing none?
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Personnel number 9 is curriculum writing for the 22-23 school year. May I have a motion and a second, please? Motion by Conti, second by Barachi. Any questions?
A question
Mhm.
about most of these are 2 to 3 hours, but the school is good. Kindergarten and grade 1 is 50 hours to align the curriculum each. Is there a reason there's so much time spent on that, but everything else is like 2 to 3 hours?
It's a full realignment of 2 different programs. The teacher is taking the notes and information from the grade level and realigning the whole program based on feedback. Some of the other subjects are already started. That is one area that was not started yet. So there's one individual working for the entire realignment of the whole curriculum.
All the subject areas.
All the ELA standards. Correct.
Okay, so when you say realignment of standards, is that with the current program that we have and that's not changing?
No, it is changing, and we're pulling in other resources. So the grade levels have been meeting and pulling in resources, giving suggestions and ideas on how to realign and better meet the needs of the students. So that writer will pull all those resources and recreate a brand new ELA curriculum.
Just for kindergarten and first?
Correct.
And the rest of the groups, I know, Tokyo talked about looking at that program. Would that happen if that program stopped it?
For kindergarten and first grade is pulling in multiple resources. The other grade levels will be posted shortly once we realign and look how much writing is needed for those grade levels. They met last week during professional development to work on some of those realignment plans.
Anyone else? Thank you. Go ahead.
Ms. Bassett?
Yes.
Mrs. Barachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Conti? Mrs. Popso? Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Wainwright? Mr. Nutter? Mrs. Skinner?
Yes. Comments from the public. Members of the public are invited to submit any general comments during this public comment portion of the meeting. The board, pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, will not publicly discuss personnel matters. This portion of the meeting is not a question and answer session. The board will not respond to comments made by members of the public during this portion of the meeting. However, the board will give all comments appropriate consideration and will refer all individual complaints to the superintendent of schools or administration for resolution. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration and not to exceed a total of 30 minutes. May I have a motion and a second to open Community Forum 2? Motion by Sullivan. Second by Cartier. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Do you want to use the microphone, Jenny, please? Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the board for considering the full-time nursing position for the district. I truly, truly believe this will be a huge benefit to all of the students and staff here at the Florence Township School District. And I'm grateful for your consideration and adoption of this. Thank you again.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing no one, may I have a motion motion and a second to close Community Forum 2? Motion by Cartier, second by Sullivan. All in favor? Any opposed? Then may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting? Motion by Barachi, second by Sullivan. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much.